Welcome to the Education Marketing Leader podcast with Chris Raposo. If you're looking to dive into the latest industry insights, draw inspiration from education success stories, or just want to sharpen your marketing skills, you're in the right place. Here, we bring you a diverse range of voices from experts and leaders in the field, offering you a unique blend of professional development and practical strategies. Whether you want to understand your audience better, stay updated with the latest tech trends in marketing, or expand your professional network, we've got you covered. So while you're driving on your morning commute or winding down after a busy day, let's explore the dynamic world of education marketing together.
Welcome everybody to another edition of the book club, May book club. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm a marketer. I just recently switched from Hand and Hill to a marketing agency called Staymates. It's a full service marketing agency out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I'm the AVP of marketing strategy there now. I'm also the podcast host of the Education Marketing Leader, and then the host of the Education Marketing Leader book club, storyteller, runner. I love to run at conferences. Jeff Ebbing is one of those people that ran with me before. I'm a husband and a father of two, Joseph and Kate, 3 and 6. Today's book discussion will be on Heart Over Hype by Jamie Hunt. Jamie is the former CMO of Old Dominion, and now the founder of Solve Higher Ed. And she's the podcast host of Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO. So I would suggest everybody check that out. It's a really good podcast. Strategist, author of this book. Now I'm sure there may be more books to come in the future. Spouse to Dave Hunt. Dave is here as well. And she's mom to Clem Bob. Clem Bob is Herman's tortoise. And it's also the logo that she has for her brand. So if you're going to AMA 2025 in National Harbor, there may be some swag to be had. So I wish I had one of those t-shirts as well. Book discussion. So we'll just go over it. It's an open forum. It's the last couple of times super respectful. There's no hand raising, just chime in. And then as people give their takes or their feedback on particular chapters or the book itself, Jamie, feel free to bounce back and just, talk to them about that, how you felt about it, what you thought about it. And then about 35, 40 minutes in, we'll go into a Q&A with you where people can just simply ask you questions about the book, why you went ahead and did the book and how it came about, or whatever the questions may be, right? So open forum as always, for the ones that have been here. Would love to have a quick introduction if we can do that. So Jamie, with the introduction here, what did I miss? Anything else?
I'm also the mom to Maybe, who is a Chihuahua, and my chief marketing officer. And
Sweet.
She may chime in at some point today.
Awesome. We love pets. We love pets. Leslie Rice. Where you from? What institution or agency or company do you represent? And yeah.
I'm coming to the group today from Westfield State University in Western Mass. So it's a little chilly here, representing kind of the Northeast in New England. That's where I'm coming from.
Very good. Very good. Welcome. Great to have you. Caitlin Weldon.
My name is Caitlin Weldon. I am the coordinator for social media and internal marketing at Rose State College. We're a community college in Oklahoma, Midwest City, which is right outside of Oklahoma City.
Awesome. Welcome back. Great to have you again. Jill Whitaker.
I'm Jill Whitaker. I'm the Director of Web Services at Southern Utah University, which is in Cedar City, Utah, in the southwest corner of Utah.
Awesome. Jeff Ebbing.
Hey there, I'm Jeff Ebbing, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Southeastern Community College in Iowa. That's the bottom right-hand corner. And I am just a hop, skip, and a brief jump from Staymates World Headquarters in Cedar Rapids. So I expect plenty of visits from Chris as he migrates and conquers the world with Staymates. So
thank you.
Make the move, and welcome to Iowa.
Thank you, sir. Lori Roberts.
Hi, everyone. Laurie Roberts. I work in digital communications and content strategy at Johnson & Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island.
Awesome. Welcome back. Pablo.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pablo Mora from Chile. I'm head of communication at the office of the Vice President for Research and Development at the University of Santiago here in Chile.
Very good. Tom Shannon.
Hi, I'm Tom Shannon. I'm a big fan of both Jamie and Dave and the rest of the group here. I work for a company called Quint, which is traditionally a creative staffing company for in the marketing, creative, digital space. So I work quite often with higher education folks.
Awesome. Welcome back. Tom is the book member of the month, and he's also the Good Samaritan who always offers a scholarship to people who may need a little bit of financial support of getting a book. So, Tom, we all appreciate you, man. Thank you for being a part of this book club and this community.
Absolutely. And just a quick note, I love Jamie's book and wanted to join. I am working on another project as we speak, so I'll be back and forth because got to manage the sales efforts as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Well, good to have you. Dave Hunt.
Hey, everyone, I'm Dave Hunt. I'm the Executive Creative Director for ODU Global, which is the online learning area at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, on the coast.
Awesome. Good to have you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Jeffna.
Hi, I'm Jeffna Cohen. I'm a freelancer working out of Portland, Oregon, and I have a current junior. So don't all come at me. I'm really paying attention to the messages that he's receiving right now and the way that schools are, kind of showcasing what they've got to him. So I've got a live case.
Awesome. Good to have you. Good to have you. Sarah Shoup.
Hey, I'm Sarah Shoup. I am in Ithaca, New York at Cornell University. I'm an enrollment marketer and social media strategist for one of the newer schools at Cornell, the Brooks School of Public Policy. So I help try to attract people to go into public service, which is hard right now. But it's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you again. Thanks for being here. Sarah Kelser.
Hi, Sarah Kelser from Cluedo. We're AI-powered site search and AI chat. And I love this book. It's so good. Thank you, Jamie, for writing it.
Good to have you again. Beth.
My name is Beth Cron, and I'm the Director of Higher Education Services at iFactory, a digital marketing company that does a lot of website redesigns and other campaigns to help drive enrollment.
Perfect. Good to have you back. Tiffany.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Becker. I do digital strategy for William & Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Awesome. Very good. And last but not least, my German colleague, Jannika.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jannika Carey. I worked in higher ed for 12 years, most recently as the communications director at University of Lynchburg. And I have been a freelance writer and editor for the past year, working with iMarketing Mix and Enrollment Fuel and other clients.
Awesome. Welcome back, Jannika. Great to have you. As you may have seen, there's a lot of people that shared their LinkedIn profile in the chat, so feel free to drop that in there and then go ahead and connect with each other after this book club. As we get the conversation started, I wanted to share something that's near and dear to my heart, which is the dedication page of every book. Every time I go to read a book, the first thing I read is the dedication page because it's so personal. And that one really floored me. To my dad, I wish you were here to read this. I love you more. So when I read this, I was like, holy cow, this is going to be a good book, super special throughout, bookmarked to the nth degree. And I would love to hear all of your thoughts. What did you connect with most and why? Where do empathy and metrics clash in your work? What stretches your thinking? How are you building audiences trust today? What leadership insights stuck with you? And what's one idea that you want to try now? So the floor is open. Please just share your thoughts.
Hi everyone. Pablo Mora here. First of all, I would like to say that I really enjoyed reading this book. So thank you very much, Jamie, for this wonderful knowledge expressed in this book. I felt it was a very personal book, but at the same time, it provides valuable knowledge to apply not just in higher education, but also in every industry or field, because in marketing and communication we always work with people and put focus on people through empathy. I think it's a very interesting advantage. So as I told you, I enjoyed the book itself and how it is written, the personal experiences, the concepts, examples, a very complete handbook of empathy in marketing and communication. And what about themes or topics stood out most to me? I think I learned a lot about two topics specifically: storytelling and crisis management. Storytelling because at the university where I work, we have been focusing on giving a voice to our researchers. I work just for researchers, not for students. And in the last time, we have been letting them explain their experiences, discoveries, projects, scientific projects. So this knowledge was very useful to me to apply in this work. I don't know, for example, to how to move from transactional to transformational storytelling. There are many tips to apply. It's no easy, but it's necessary to apply. And about crisis, I think crisis is one of the topics that I like least about communication in crisis. But this book give me a new way, a new sense to manage crisis based on empathy, not just in interests. So thank you very much, Jamie, for this knowledge.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else got any feedback right now that they can't hold back?
I just want to say one of the things that really resonated was when I read the book, I was going through a moment of we were doing journey maps for a client, and I was like, are we really doing more journey maps? There's always like a lot of key similar like friction points, and like, is this really like worth everyone's time and money? And one of my colleagues was like, you need to get a grip. It's a little different for everybody, and I think everybody needs to see it. And then Jamie, I read the book and it like reinforced like the importance of really just earnestly going through the exercise every time.
Yeah.
I highlighted a line in the book, and I think it's something that people forget a lot, but it's just, if your student pool is primarily traditional students, you're asking teenagers, in italics, to make a massive life decision. And I think that sometimes we almost forget that, even though we know we're like, oh, the traditional Gen Z, Gen Alpha, we're targeting them, they like these things. But it's like, but remember, their prefrontal cortex isn't formed. You're like expecting them to just jump in and know how to make these decisions and getting frustrated when they don't follow through. And it's literally teenagers. And I think that that's an empathy that is forgotten sometimes, even though we want to look at all the generational research and things. It's like, just keep remembering that part. They're basically children. They're big children. And so that's a part that you need to really remember. I just thought that was just phrasing that and the italics in there. It's just kind of reinforcing. It's like, remember this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in fact, I think, Jill, kind of piggybacking on that, one of the things that I kept hearing in the back of my head, though, was how to balance that empathetic, this is who we're talking to, with that desire. And I'm glad we've got some enrollment folks on here with that kind of, I'm going to say like the enrollment pounding our chests, like, this is what we're great at. This is why you should like us. So for me, I kept feeling like, how do I balance that kind of human communication with the desire of a lot on our enrollment team, which is good, which is great, is to say like, this is why we're the best. This is why you want to choose us. I feel like I'm constantly having a hard time between that thinking and the book. So maybe that kind of question of where does empathy and metrics clash, is sort of where do our communication styles feel like they're clashing to me? I don't know, hopefully somebody else has found a way through that.
Well, I think it goes back to why would anyone care? I mean, that is something that when I worked in higher ed, we would write on our whiteboard all the time is why would anyone care? I mean, there's all the stuff that we tout all the time, but then you really have to keep going back to your audience and think what, there's a lot of stuff that we want to tell and we want them to hear, but what do they really care about? What do they need to hear in that moment? And what do they want? What questions are they asking? And I think, I mean, really with this book, everything resonated with me. So I stopped putting notes and underlining things because every word resonated with me and I could relate to every single thing. The one thing that stood out to me the most straight from the beginning was branding and how it's not just a marketing problem and how it really is about everything you do as a university. I thought that was really, really strong and it really hit me because I had that experience a lot working in higher ed. And that's a really big one that is hard to overcome and really hard to, once you've rebranded, especially, that's a very hard thing to pull off, I think, and to break down those silos and to get everyone on the same page.
I think for me, and coming at it from a different perspective, so I work as a vendor for universities and still fairly new to the space, but I've become close with Jamie through the AMA, and we've connected for the last couple of years. But I often will lean on Jamie and ask her questions about what's happening in the space and whatnot. So experiencing it, the empathy from Jamie firsthand and also reading it was kind of a very cool. It's not often you get to actually know the author that you're reading a book from and experience a lot of what she talks about, and obviously a little bit of a different context. But even though I'm a annoying salesperson slash vendor, to for her to lean in and support and help me better understand the landscape of things. So thank you, Jamie.
And Jamie, feel free to chime in. Like if something, like if you want to elaborate on something somebody says, right, then feel free to just give your take there as well. Yeah, I really like the part where you said most students aren't searching for best college because that's kind of like the keyword that you want to put in there, best college in the state of Georgia, Florida, or whatever, right? But then one thing that really spoke to me because I went through it as an adult learner, having empathy for adult learners, they don't really care about that trophy that that college is like has the biggest prestige. They just want to know how can I get from where I am today, where I'm stuck in some career that I can't support my family in, to getting a degree in the quickest, most affordable way possible so that I can rise up in the ranks and get what I want to get out of it, right? I don't really care about, as an adult learner especially, right? Because what I've read in the book there was too that traditionally we market to, or at least our marketing brochure speaks to the traditional age students, but then somebody coming in from the outside as a non-traditional students, they may not resonate, or they definitely don't resonate with those brochures, right? And that may alienate them from your institution, even though you may have the perfect product or class or major for them. But if they cannot get that connection with your marketing efforts, they'll just look for somebody who can. And I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there if you know how to speak to somebody in a way that they need to hear it in a particular time frame, or in a particular season that they are. Like you said, you don't want to, like for example, if it's end of August, right? It's back to school. Adult learners, they have kids. They don't need another marketing message to put additional pressure on them to enroll to your school. And then you switch it over to January is the perfect time to get that message of, hey, people are thinking about their New Year's resolutions. They want to have a change in their life. So that's a perfect time to hit them with that. Hey, look beyond where you currently are. There's opportunity and there's hope as well. So I really like that messaging and those suggestions that you had there.
I was just going to touch upon that whole message of best and how the book points out that best isn't a ranking or a statistic. and it's not, something that is a blanket statement. It's unique to everybody. I mean, just looking at the environment of Cedar City, and we might look at a typical traditional right out of high school student and think they're going to want this on-campus experience and they're going to want to be in clubs and everything, and that's how we're going to market to them. And then we're going to say, oh, an adult learner, they are only going to want online degrees and things like that. But maybe 100 miles outside of town, there is a kid who is a 17-year-old new high school graduate, but he's working to take over his family's farm, but he wants to get some education, but he still has to work, on the farm there. And maybe online classes are exactly what is best for him, but we have been marketing it all. It's like, hey, do you still want to work and make a better life for your family and your children that you're providing for? And he's like, well, that's not resonating with me necessarily. So best is literally, very personal for each person, and we don't always know exactly what that is. So we have to be careful in our messaging. Sometimes we want to make the messaging for all of these niche groups, but then it's like maybe sometimes we need to speak about it in more broad terms too. It's like, you know what? This online degree could be for everybody. This on-campus experience could be for everybody. I have a student worker that was 35. She's doing the on-campus experience, loves being involved in clubs and everything like that. That's not your traditional path, but she loves that experience too. So I think that we can touch upon all of this for everybody in different ways.
For sure. For sure.
I think I heard that a lot too, Jill, is like there was a lot of like niching down and segmenting the audiences and getting different different messages out to different people. But I also saw like an empathetic route would also be just covering some of the basic questions with that general messaging. And I think that's what, like on the vendor's side, I also want to do some of those basic FAQs. So it's like, how do I start? Because it feels like there's so much work to do when you start mapping out like all the questions a student might have or all the questions like a client might have. So where do you start? That's kind of a broad question for everyone.
Yeah. So going back to best, right? It's really subjective too. Like you said, Jill, like people are like, okay, best online degree or best major here and this and that. And then also when it comes to generalization, I like the part where you talked about the calls to action and having calls to action with heart. The general button that you have is apply now or request more information, but there you had some suggestions there, like take the first step towards a future you'll be proud of. Apply today, that sort of stuff. It's like, okay, that shows me the outcome, or at least that gives me a vision of where I want to go. Then I'm just thinking though, like it's going to be a really big button, right? So how am I going to do that? Is this going to be like a long hyperlink? Maybe have a long hyperlink there and then have a subheading or something like that and have the apply now button, so trying to figure out how to go around that because I love the button and I love the calls to action. It's just in my day-to-day life, how I'm going to apply that. Yeah. Laurie, tell me about your thoughts. What stood out to you?
Yeah, so a lot of things stood out to me, but like, so I've came into higher ed through the social media angle, but before that I was in public relations and now I'm kind of doing more holistic digital communication. So it's kind of come back full circle. And like this book was so timely for me because like it is about empathy. It is about making those human connections. And sometimes you can kind of get like pulled away from that. Because like we've been really changing our communication strategy here and making it less about like, well, we offer this and this and this, and we, rank this way and we rank this way. And it's more about, finding those stories that are going to resonate with the type of students you're tracking here. And then so I'm also was reading this book through a lens of like, we're about to do like a big website redesign. So like the sentence that was like, students and parents don't just measure your website against other colleges, they measure against every digital experience that they encounter. It was just like resonated so hard because it's so true. I feel like we're always looking at inspiration at our competitors or just like at other people in this space. And it's really important to take that back, to step back and just look at the landscape because you are competing so heavily against everything. And it's like not only how do you stand out against other colleges and universities, but how do you just stand out in general when like everyone's attention span is getting more and more contracted? How do you just make sure like the most important pieces of information are right up there at the top? So yeah, a lot to gather from the book.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm using, I think it's in chapter 9. There's like an empathy mapping exercise. And I'm in a new school within Cornell. And of course, we're debuting 2 new master's programs this year. And we're trying to figure out who wants this master's degree and how are we marketing them. And I'm in a situation where the marketing, the school is trying to decide, should it be the faculty director that is kind of running the ship of how we're doing something, or should it be marketing and communications? And I think we all know the answer to that in this room, probably. But I actually like gave that faculty member that I'm working with right now, like, you need to read this chapter or this whole book, because they're used to thinking of, here's this $90,000 degree, and here are the things you get to do with it. And that's how they wanted to market it. And it was a good exercise to go through the empathy mapping with them to show how you need to be thinking about your audience more than yourself. So you're selling the transformation that someone's going to go through going through this program, instead of that you get to take these 5 classes and have this experience. It's like, how do you marry those things together? And the empathy mapping was a good exercise to go through as a group to think about what are the questions that my prospective students are going to ask at the like awareness, consideration, and decision time, and introducing the faculty member to that kind of funnel look at enrollment marketing, because they hadn't thought of it in that way. But overall, it was just really helpful, Jamie, to have this as a tool to show someone that's not in communications and marketing where to come from with empathy when they're marketing a degree. So thanks. I appreciate that.
I love that.
We have that all over. You've got like the faculty director of a master's program, and they've written all these things, and that's exactly what they want to see appearing on the website and in ads. And it's like, we want it to say our student outcomes. And I'm like, okay, outcomes are great, but they need to be rewritten into a readable way, because putting it out there, it's like, by the end of the program, students will have demonstrable efficacy in the, and you're sitting there, that's not going to read well in an ad. Nobody's going to skim over that and be like, yep, that's for me. But I get the student outcomes, those types of things. Those are valuable, and they are part of the accreditation process. But the accreditation process isn't what pulls people in. And so you're right, we need to have those balances. Like Sarah was saying, it's like, we know who needs to end up finessing the messages that go out, but universities don't always recognize that balance.
Yeah, and culturally, I think you just got me thinking. I was thinking about some other project that we're working on where the faculty have traditionally had a very big, large seat at the table. They're really, really smart, and none of them are marketing experts. And really getting them to do empathy mapping, I think, is vital.
I might have shared it in this group in the past, but I have a colleague on campus in the academic side of things. And she explained to faculty, it's like, they're brilliant, but they've been sitting there working on this same subject matter, digging down deep, 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 deep into a hole. So they've got this really deep understanding, but then when they look out to the world, it's like through the little hole down at, they're at the bottom of this hole, and they just see this little sliver of the sky, and they don't see the whole world around that their message needs to be shared with, and the ways that it could be shared with. And so it's like, okay, we recognize your expertise, but it's not the broad way to get it out.
Another good exercise that this helped me remind people that I work with and faculty and staff to do was to apply to our program. And they get to see how many stopping points there are for someone to complete an application. And I think it's really helpful to do that also with your biggest competitors. So for me, applying at other public policy or MPA programs has been really helpful. And also thinking, I have a student affairs background, so working with students in residence halls and at orientation, like how can you work with your student affairs people on campus to get the questions that they're getting every day? And how can you infuse that in your marketing of your, at least for enrollment marketing, how can you infuse that? Because they're the people that are getting the frontline questions that you could serve to your audience at the time that they need them. So don't forget about your student affair friends.
We need to bust those silos, right, Jamie? I've heard you say that on your podcast.
Yes.
Bust those silos. That's right. Jeff, Penny, for your thoughts.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. I've focused a lot over the past number of years on trying to write messaging that really relates to context, because younger people, or even people who haven't gone to school, we're a community college, so we're a lot of first gen, a lot of people who are just barely getting by. Put the context around price, put the context around the investment. A student loan means $200 a month for the next 20 years of your life. Do you want those kinds of things instead of just big student loans? What I like about what you've done here is I can use empathy. I don't want to say it's a tactic, that almost sounds manipulative, but it's going to help influence how I can tell that context story to communicate with the value, the proposition that we're making. And I thought, well, that's going to be really touchy-feely and things to think about, but what are my tactical approaches? And you've got tons of them in there, and how to apply that. So it was a great surprise to read it and have that perspective. It's definitely going to change how I write and put my messages together.
Yeah, for me, I thought that was such like a refreshing thing to read in print, because like someone else on the call said, I just had to put my highlighter down at some point. So I was like, I just want to like highlight everything, because like all of this, like I want to like bring back to my team and my supervisors. Because like I've told stories before where it's like, students maybe weren't the best student in high school, but they really wanted to go to college and have a good experience. Or maybe the first major they tried wasn't the best fit, but then they took a class or were inspired by a professor and they switched and they found their footing and they found their path and they're having successes. And I've received pushback in the past where it's like, well, can we like not like labor so much on like the part that didn't go well? Like, let's just skip ahead to the part that did go well. But I feel like it's not authentic not to showcase what that experience is for students, because I feel like, especially with this generation, like they're so caught up in, well, like, what if I have a problem? What if my mental health suffers? What if this? What if that? And if you can showcase how you're supporting those students in those moments, then they're going to see themselves in that story and feel seen. And I feel like that's something that's hard to measure, but I feel like it's really important.
I think you made some sort of a comment about how to use testimonials someplace in the book, and I liked your approach to that, because instead of I did great and I love it, my life is amazing, you talk, I had the struggle, I was really afraid, and you call that out more specifically. And I've been fortunate enough to interview some students who will do that on their own, but it's not a point of reference that I have when I'm pulling that information out of people. So I appreciated, again, that reminder of how to tell that story, kind of like Lori's talking about. That's authentic, that shows the warts plus the shiny parts. That really resonated as well.
And I was like, we've had some small data points there around the testimonials that we've written, or those student profiles that we've written, the ones that have that kind of authentic, I struggled, and here's where, this professor helped me. Those are the ones that are getting more shares. If we put them on social, they're making bigger rounds. We're getting kind of more comments from kind of other parents, like, oh, that's so great to hear. So we're trying to do it that way. We kind of talk about like, how do you use metrics? Is some of the ones where people are telling that story do better than the ones where it's just, I'm a superstar and was from day one. And I think that fits for us as a regional public, that those are the students that we're getting, is that they have a little struggle and then they do great after they find their spot. And I'd also add just to, I think the empathy driven communication internally. I've been doing a lot with a lot of responding to executive orders, a lot for our kind of HR, responding internally, that kind of messaging to employee changes and things. And it's been interesting to start thinking about it from this empathy focus of how to support people as everyone's going through just a challenging time with changing political climates, challenging finances. Everybody's a little worried. So thinking not just about our students and prospective students, but our current employees.
Yeah, I was on another meeting where someone was talking about that, which is it's actually a really great point, Leslie, to think empathetically about how it feels to be an employee and know that all of the DEI statements and things that you believe in and have been working on for the past 5 years are being removed. And that's been a bigger blow to a lot of people than I think I realized, just because it was executive orders and people were sort of forced into it.
Mhm. We are getting to the point where we have the Q&A with Jamie. So Jamie, if everybody, ask Jamie any questions that you have, maybe how to approach certain things, like for example, breaking silos in your institution, right? So Jamie was the CMO at Old Dominion, really high level position, but for some middle managers, for example, how do you approach that to make sure that students don't get bombarded with 5 different emails on the same day with different things? Because then all of a sudden they start tuning out things that may be important, right? How would you go about that as a middle manager who may not have as much pull?
Oh, that's as a middle when you threw that in, that added a little bit of complication to it. But
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in thinking about the student journey as being something that starts from inquiry and ends when they pass away, to be honest with you. Like we often think about what the student journey looks like from inquiry until they are accepted, or maybe up to when they actually enroll. But we as marketing offices tend not to think about them from that persistence from first semester to second semester, and then that retention from first year to second year, and then those graduation rates. And I think, thinking about that idea of like, are there 5 offices sending some sort of message every day and it just becomes noise? I really encourage folks to do an audit of what they're doing in from a communications perspective. And you as a middle manager might not be able to have get that buy-in across all of the offices that need to participate in that. If you can make a really strong case for your leadership to undertake that type of project and maybe volunteer to lead it, and volunteer to like get folks involved, you need some sort of executive support for sure, because the people in housing and residence life are busy and they're not going to want to help you with something this massive unless their boss also agrees that it's a worthwhile use of their time. But I think that journey mapping, if people are allowed to email prospective students, you need to get your handle around that immediately. But even beyond that, going into that yield, anti-melt, persistence, retention, graduation, making the case for your boss and volunteering to take the lead on it, I think is a great way to get started with that.
Awesome.
I was actually going to ask you about that digest email. I was really intrigued by that and I love it, but has that been done in action? Is anybody doing something like that? And how successful is it? Because if I'm the business office and your tuition's due, I need to tell you now. And if I'm the enrollment people, I need to tell you now. So how do you balance those deadlines with a digest?
Yeah. So when we did a digest at Winston-Salem State for prospective students, the first year was rough because people weren't planning ahead. They weren't thinking about like, I need to remind people next week that they're going to need to pay bills. So the first year was rough. But once we got into the flow of it, first, it allowed us to see every communication that went out. So that was very, very instructive, and probably it helped improve yield, to be honest with you. But if you're talking about like after students are on campus, the digest, we used it as these are the mass communications, those one-to-one communications where it's like, you specifically need to come in for this appointment. That wouldn't be in the digest. That would be something that would be sent out separately. I will say at Winston-Salem State, my team read every single one of those types of emails as well, because we were finding that students were getting these emails with like red, bold-faced, underlined, you must do this or you will be kicked out. And that was not the vibe we were trying to protect. I seen the heads nodding as though they've seen those before. And the worst offenders were housing, which it was like the move in would be like, you're gonna freaking suck at this. You're gonna bomb move in. You're gonna bring dishonor to your family in your move in efforts. Here's some rules. Like, can we say this a lot nicer? Can we couch this in a lot nicer language? But I will say, I mean, there were a lot of darts thrown at me. So the first thing we digested were those on-campus emails. And then the second thing we digested were those to prospective students. And I will say there was a lot of eggs and tomatoes thrown at Jamie Hunt that first year. Like it took a lot of fortitude, and it took the backing of the chancellor when the other VPs were like, this is stupid and I don't want to do it. The chancellor really had to say, I really need you to at least try this for a year. And then when we saw good results come from it, massive improvements in students completing the actions they needed to complete because it was clear and it was well outlined and it wasn't bombarding them with, I need to do this for this office and this for this office and competing deadlines. Then everybody got on board for year 2. I honestly don't know if they're still doing it because it took a lot of my political and social capital to get people. I feel that it's very likely that people reverted once there wasn't somebody like as vocal as me, like, no, I will not back down from this. I think probably I hired the person that replaced me. I feel like she's more of a people pleaser than I am, and probably just kind of was like, oh yeah, this digest is dumb. It's a lot of work for my team. Let's do something easier. It is a lot of work for the team to do, but I think it's the right thing to do. And part of that
digest was, I'm like, goals. I want that for our student communications, for our employee communications. I mean, we'll get, a thing that's supposed to be the digest to employees each week, but then there's like 17 other emails that are coming out each week. And I'm sitting there, all of this could have been in that one.
Yes. I mean, it's a huge change management effort. When I got to Miami, it was in the midst of COVID, and every office was sending out its own COVID. I mean, people were getting maybe 4 or 5 different COVID messages a day. And so when we digested that up, it was maybe 2 weeks before everybody was like, oh my God, this is so much better. I'm so glad we're doing this. But yeah, that like when I started at Winston-Salem State, we were averaging 45 individual emails a week that were going to all employees. That's what, 9 a day, something like that. That's a lot.
Hello, Jamie.
Hi.
When it comes to storytelling, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to work preparing communication with faculties, with researchers, because they are a little bit complicated people,
Yes.
So what strategies do you recommend to encourage faculties and leadership to actively participate in crafting stories according to your experience?
Yeah. So I would say that I know in the United States, research is under attack right now. And one of the things that I'm encouraging, one of my very first projects was actually working with the school on its business messaging. And so one of the things I encouraged them to convey to faculty was like, this is life or death in a lot of ways. If we can't figure out how to connect the story of the work that you're doing with the average person, we're not going to be able to convey the value of the work that we do here in higher education. There are so many things sitting on our desks. I'm looking around don't look this direction of my desk. It's very nice this way, not that great that way. But when I look at all of the stuff on my desk, how much of this stuff was invented or created because of something that happened at a university? How many people had life-saving treatments for something because of research that was done at a university? All of that kind of stuff, we have to contextualize that in order to really convey what the value is that we do, because people see us. I'm still teaching at WVU, so I feel safe saying us because I still work technically in higher education, but people still see us as this is a place where like a lucky elite few, or, people who are, think they're better than me, go to school and they get jobs that, let them live in the big fancy houses or whatever. And they don't see the overarching value of these institutions, and the research and the work that faculty are doing is such an important part of that story. But when they don't work with us, or if they're putting out, their press release is something you can't even read because it's so scientific, and they're not contextualizing that down into how is that going to benefit the broader community or the scientific community or whatever. I think making that case, using your marketing savvy to make the case for your marketing, is really what you're trying to do. And so, think about, how do I market what I'm trying to get faculty to do to faculty? Put yourself in their shoes. They're busy. Somebody earlier said, like, they're hyper focused on their field. They have, seeing this narrow of a vision. So if I look at how that person might feel and might receive this message, how can I convey that like doing this extra work when they're already so busy to help me contextualize this benefits them, and then figuring out how you can do that. I think we don't spend enough time as marketers marketing, if that makes sense.
Kind of related to that, I'd love to just ask you a little bit more about busting down silos. So I think we're all in agreement, like that's what we need to do, but it is so hard. And like even when you have the best intentions, or you're like rethinking things, like you really need the community buy-in to meet you where you're at. So like as I'm kind of planning over the summer and looking to the start of the academic semester, like what strategies or tips would you recommend to really just like get buy-in from the right people and make sure it's not just like a frenzy for a couple of weeks and then it's like you're spending all your time reminding people, hey, don't remember to tell me like what's going on, so we have fun, cool stories to tell.
Yeah, I'm a big, huge believer in building relationships across campus that are not just around the work that we do. So, taking people out for coffee, or saying, hey, do you want to get together for lunch, go out for happy hour, get ice cream after work, whatever. Fill in the blank there to start building that relationship, and then bringing people into the conversation as early as you humanly can. So, if you're like, I know that I'm going to be, working on XY project, and I'm going to want housing to review this at some point, bring them in early so that they don't feel like, Lori's always asking us at the last minute to look at stuff. And while you're thinking, hey, this is busting down silos, I'm asking for their input on something, they might be thinking she's asking us for this input at the end of this whole process. So the earlier that you can bring people into that process to feel like they're part of the overall team that's working on it. I think I talked about this in the book, but I know I've talked about this on podcasts, but when we did that student journey map project at Winston-Salem State, the director of housing and the AVP of enrollment management did not really work together at all. And the director of housing really didn't want to be involved in these types of like group think projects, right? Where we're all thinking and solving together. But you just need a couple wins. And I tell people all the time, one of my proudest moments in higher ed was when he called me and said, hey, Jamie, I'm thinking about implementing this thing. Do you think it would be helpful to pull together a group like what you pulled together to work on this? And I was like, yes, yes, I don't want to scare you off, but yes, please. Because he saw the value. So I think if you start bringing people in earlier, and have them be part of that conversation, bring more voices to the table, and then they're going to see the positive outcomes of that work, and then they're going to want to be involved in stuff in the future.
Got a couple more minutes, everybody. If you have your questions, 5 more minutes.
Jamie, I have a question on a kind of empathy. I will say I had the book sitting on my desk, and I won't even name titles, but I had a couple of leaders come in, and I got the eye roll of this is soft, this is too hard, it's too touchy-feely. I think somebody said that earlier. And as someone who can come across as like, oh, this nice, person from the Midwest, and how do you get people to say to take this kind of approach seriously, and that this isn't soft, it isn't, and I'll even say kind of gendered. Like, so, you know, I got the response of like, sometimes you just got to tell people how it is, you know, so can you speak a little bit to how we can get people to take empathy seriously as an effective strategy?
Yeah. So I honestly think this book would sell better if I didn't have empathy in the title. That was something I really weighed, and I do observe the gender bias, I guess, in this group right now. And it is one of the biggest frustrations that the one of a podcaster that was going to interview me was sort of like, isn't this just about being nice? And so I have tried to talk to people about like, empathy isn't being nice. Empathy is being able to see from somebody else's perspective and to be able to shape your messaging around that. That's just good marketing, right? If you're marketing and you don't care what your end user is receiving, it's not going to work. And so it's not about putting lovely hearts and flowers around messages. And that's such a misconception about empathy. It's about seeing from that person's perspective so that you can deliver a message in a way that's going to drive action. And that's like, to me, that's how I would reframe it, is that like, it's even, you know, when I wrote about empathy in the fall, about like leading with empathy in the fall, and people were like, but then there's no accountability. And it's like, empathy requires accountability. It just means that you're shaping how you deliver messages in a way that's going to be heard by the end user. So I think, you know, talking about it from that perspective, I think is really helpful. Also, please give me their addresses and I will write them little nasty grams so that they know I'm not nice. And then maybe they will appreciate the book a little bit more.
That's great. I would love to hear. Go ahead.
Jamie, I would like to know if are there any brands or institutions, could be a college or maybe another institution, that you think that today is close to applying the knowledge that we can find in your book, for example? You can give us some example, for example?
Yeah, so I've been working with UNC Pembroke since the fall, actually since the summer, on reshaping how they communicate through the lens that this book is based around. And so they have completely changed how they're messaging. We started with from the time students are admitted all the way through their first semester, and completely changed how they communicated to that audience, and the cadence of those communications, the messaging in those communications, looping in the parents, I think, and having the parents be allies in the persistence and retention conversation, especially. And they're in the process of putting all of that into play right now. So I think they're going to be an example. I'm hoping we submitted a proposal to AMA. I'm hoping that we get accepted to talk about, you know, some of the results that they've seen. I know that the stuff that we put in place for events has been really well received, that people felt like they were getting the message at just the right moment with just the right information in it. It wasn't loaded down with a ton of gobbledygook about the university. It was like, you need to know where to park. I bet the question you have is, do I need walking shoes? I bet the question I have is, am I going to get fed? Like, and just directly answering those questions. And I know that the scores that they've gotten in the surveys about those communications have been really, really high. But we'll see in the fall, I think, the outcome of that full journey that we've built for yield and anti-melt at least. And then it'll be another year before we know about persistence and retention. Winston-Salem State did do this well. I genuinely don't think they're still doing it. I hate to say that.
Thank you.
So, well, we're getting to the end of the book club, but I'd like to ask one more person question about their thoughts about this book. Dave Hunt, you've been pretty quiet. What are your thoughts here on this book?
Well, I'm of course heavily biased, and I got to read it multiple times as it was taking shape. So, but that was a great honor. I'll tell you, like, I'm excited this summer now that we're kind of through the semester, we've been working on a big marketing maturity project with my team, and the next thing that I'd like to do is actually kind of go through the and reread the book, this time with the ability to actually kind of like engage my team with it and really bring a lot of the insights, a lot of the notes that I took on the side as I was reading, just to give feedback and stuff like that. Now it's like, all right, like let's go on actually like getting some of this stuff implemented. And I am of course incredibly proud of Jamie and got to see how much work and effort she put into it, and how much of herself is in it. I think that's one of probably, I mean, again, my bias, but I love how much of her is in the book. And I mean, that gets back to what you were saying at the very beginning with the dedication, Chris, but it goes all the way through the whole book. She's got so much insight and has done so much for higher ed. And I think that this book is just like a nice, natural next step for her. So it's been great to see it come to life.
It is, and we're really grateful for her and for her sharing those insights openly with the public through her podcast as well as the book. Okay, we'll get to the photo op section of this book. So everybody hold up their book, and I'm going to do a screenshot so we can put it on social.
You might have to run in here and grab a copy.
You go get everybody get your. Oh, there you go. There you go. Perfect. All righty then.
What a dork.
Let me figure out this screenshot here. Okay, and all right, everybody up. Everybody ready? Perfect. I got a good one. Awesome, everybody. Love it. Love this section, this part of the book club. And as always, so next book club, real quick. Next month is going to be Mailed It by Dave Kibbles and Ashley Budd. You can find it on Amazon. And most of you already seen it. I'm thinking end of June. So the problem is I won't be available June 25th. So either we're going to have a guest host, or I'm going to have to find out a different meetings, because I'm not going to be available here, and then Ashley and Day are not going to be available on the 26th. So I'm going to talk a bit about who may be able to host on the 25th. If not, we'll just switch it up to a different date. But yeah, we're going to have this book as the next book. So I'll be in touch. It's going to be in the group, what we're going to decide to do. And hope to see everybody there next time. And thanks everybody for being a part of it. Connect with one another. Reach out to Jamie if you have additional questions. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer those for you. Jamie, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Chris.
You bet. Take care, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Education Marketing Leader Podcast this week. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with your friends and your network. And if you ever thought about starting your own podcast, now that you listen to one and you got inspired, reach out to me via DM. We'd love to help you launch your own. We'll take care of everything for you, the scripting, the strategy, the editing, the distribution. All you have to do is show up, connect with your audience, and build your personal brand. So if you're ready for it, let's chat. And for everybody else, we'll see you next time at the Education Marketing Leader Podcast. Take care, friends.